Hey guys, welcome back to Story Time with Chris and Daniel. This is episode 4.
I
Yep.
think so.
We're really excited to be back, excited to keep on doing this, seeing the channel grow. And I think we've got a really fun, interesting, and as far as I know, pretty unique topic today.
I don't think so. This is bad.
Oh yeah?
No, I'm
Oh,
just
okay.
kidding.
Cut
No,
out now.
I'm actually very excited for
Yeah.
what we're talking about.
Yeah, we'll get into it, and I kind of want you to introduce it, but I will say I think this is going to be a really fun one, and it's something I had never heard about, so maybe we'll kind of put you guys onto a new thing you can go experience as well, and then if you do, we'd love for you to come back and leave your thoughts and let us know what you thought of it. But with that, I'm going to pass it to Daniel, let him kind of introduce what we're going to start off with today, because this was actually his idea, and it was a great one.
It sure was.
Par for the course.
Oh, you mean my idea was a great one?
Yeah.
I thought you meant what? Okay. Well, let me explain what we're talking about, and then I can explain why I was confused. Partly it's just because I'm a confused person, but I came across my wife and I were just looking for. Actually, it was just me at first, and then I wanted to watch it with my wife. I was just up in the morning looking for something to watch while my daughter was sleeping. And I just came across this video on Netflix, and I was like, this movie on Netflix, and I was like, this looks kind of interesting. I'll try it out. And like about 3/4 of the way in, I'm like, or about 1/4 of the way in, I'm like, this movie's like really good. And then like 3/4 of the way in, I'm like, this is one of the best movies I've ever seen. And then I actually liked it so much that later on, my wife had some free time that afternoon, and I said, let's watch this movie. I'll watch it from the beginning again. I don't even care. And then we finished it together, and we were like, that's one of the best movies I've ever seen in my life. It was so good. So it's called Sing Street. It's an indie film.
Right.
I only know the lead's name is like Ferdia. It's kind of a strange.
Yeah, they're all Irish.
Yeah, they're all Irish. Ferdia Walsh-Peelo, I think, is his full name, and he actually sang in the movie, and I don't know if the other musicians actually played or not, but like. First off, it hit every single point for like a my favorite kind of movie. It's like in my favorite genre and it's got the added thing of music, and I have a music background. I love music movies like School of Rock, stuff like that.
Yeah,
I love those movies.
And it's funny you say. I was actually going to say this is Ireland's School of Rock.
Yeah,
kind of.
It kind of is. Yeah, except it was like a bunch of kids, but like I'm so excited to talk about this film because like nobody knows about it. And I just watched it, and I'm like, everyone has to experience this. Like,
yeah.
It was such a good movie.
Well,
and then, so I told you about it. You watched it, and so now I'm hearing your reaction for the first time.
Yeah. And he kind of made a good point in his overview there. I just think this cast and the director, the writer too, but I don't know if I'll be able to find everything, but they deserve a little love, so I'm just going to quickly list off. So the director was John Carney. The movie came out in 2016. Yeah, like you said, Ferdia Walsh-Peelo was the main lead, and then his older brother, Brendan, was played by Jack Rayner. The band members were Mark McKenna, Ben Carolan, Connor Hamilton, Carl Rice, and I don't see Ngig on here. Oh, there he is. Jafaris. Not sure on his last name. And then the main female lead was played by Lucy Boynton.
So Jack, who's that? Jack who?
Jack Rayner.
That's the brother?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And real quick, just to throw this out there, if this also catches your attention, Game of Thrones fans may recognize Aidan Gillen, who plays Robert in the film, played Littlefinger in Game of Thrones.
Wow. Great
actor. He's been in some other things too. I was kind of shocked that he was like the one face I recognized. I was like, oh wow, that's pretty cool. Man, all around great. The writer's great. In the opening credits, it tells you the original music, who it was written by, and all love and credit to them as well.
It didn't say Ferdia wrote any of it?
I don't remember.
I hope I'm pronouncing his name right.
All I remember seeing was that it tells you who wrote it.
Okay.
And there was 2 names. So
the lead singer actually has a band of his own. I forget what the name of them is, but I looked them up. They have some pretty good stuff.
That's okay. I'll have to look that up too.
Yeah.
All in all, this is movie number 2 for this podcast now that you've
Yeah.
put me onto that I binged and enjoyed. Uh, so do you just want to get in? Do you
Yeah,
want to
I
ask
want to hear
questions?
I want to
Or
hear just your initial first reaction, and then I'll explain my stuff.
so overall, the whole movie now being done, I loved it. Loved it.
I was a little bit afraid you weren't gonna like it. Like there was a
Me
small
too.
part of me that was like, what if he gets there tomorrow and he's like, Daniel, what did you have me do?
Yeah, like get him be like, look, it's gonna be an interesting episode.
Yeah.
No, I think that actually would have been maybe in a way beneficial instead of us just both gushing, like have a good
Maybe so.
back and forth of what did and didn't work.
Well, the only
Um,
reason I say maybe not with this movie is because I feel like the people online who like this movie feel the same way we do about it, where it's like, how come more people don't know about this
Yeah.
film? This is a great film.
yeah,
You know?
that's fair. And I'm sure I'll find my way down that rabbit hole now that I've seen it at some point.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I loved it. Um, I think it was an extremely strong uh, narrative. I think all of not every like quote unquote main character, because I mean I would count the band as main characters, but they're really not. They're more like I'd say the main characters are Connor, uh, Ruffina,
Mm-hmm.
Ruffina,
Rafina.
and then Brendan or Brent or whatever, the
I
brother.
think it's Brendan.
Um, and then everyone else kind of just plays a role in their story. But it worked. It worked really well. Strong supporting cast, strong chemistry with
Yeah.
every single different relationship. Each of those, like, it just worked. Nothing felt forced. I'd say the few people that kind of almost weirdly felt a little bit thrown to the wayside, and I say a little bit because in certain scenes it just works perfectly that they're there. Again, the chemistry was just instant when they were actually using them, but they didn't play a main part, was the other band members.
Yeah.
When you get to see a glimpse of them kind of all just hanging out,
Mm-hmm.
it worked. Like they met, they felt like a real group of high school kids
Yeah.
that were just trying to do this. And it kind of had that.
The only exception to that would be the guitar player, because the lead singer and the guitar player had like a tight
Oh
friendship.
my gosh, I love their dynamic.
Me too.
I loved it. We'll get into it.
Yeah.
Because that almost made me cry, and we'll get into it. But yeah, the band chemistry, the love story subplot, the drama behind the scenes of all their lives,
Mm-hmm.
because it's a pretty dark movie too. I mean, it's got some dark moments.
Yeah.
I mean, a couple that literally, when it hit me, my jaw dropped. I was like, "Oh my gosh!"
Yeah.
Because you just don't expect it. But all around, man, it was really, 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 really good. And I have to say, the music alone is worth it. Not just the original. This is a classic example of a movie who properly used licensed music in a soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
Not every movie does it. It has become more and more and more popular, especially ever since Guardians of the Galaxy 1. But James Gunn showed people how to do it correctly right off the rip, and some people took it and learned from it and did it the right way, and some people still don't. This movie did it right. It's used sparingly, but when it's used, it just the mood, it fits the mood perfectly. It fits the time, the scenes, like the scenery. Well done. The music, both original and licensed, all phenomenal. I gave it. It's a 5-star for me. It's an
Nice.
absolute 5-star for me. So
All right, I
and
can
probably a
breathe a sigh of
rewatch.
relief.
Yeah, and probably a rewatch.
Oh yeah, I've rewatched it once. I'm gonna probably do it a few more times too.
Did you rewatch it for this, or when's the last time
No.
you watched it?
Less than a month ago. I mean.
Oh, okay. So you're not too fuzzy.
Yeah,
on it.
yeah.
Okay.
It was a couple weeks. Yeah, I feel the same way. Acting was super good. Usually in indie films, it's not like the acting is bad in indie films, but it's not quite what you would expect from like a major film. But this was really good acting.
Right.
The characters were so well written. I think part of the reason I liked it so much too is because I was in a band in high school, and that there was a lot that it stirred up for me with
Right.
that. Is like I remember those feelings of being in practice and thinking you're gonna make it and stuff, and then ending up like me. I'm just kidding.
This podcast is sponsored.
No, I'm very happy with my life right now. That was a total joke. But I forgot what I was going to say now. Oh, okay. So I was in a band, so I could relate to a lot of like what they were experiencing.
Mhm.
And the music was really good. Like the songs that they wrote, they so perfectly captured what a starting high school band sounds
like
as
yes.
they're finding their sound.
Right.
Like a good high school band.
Right.
Not like a kids who can't play their instruments.
Right. No, I mean,
Like,
and they grew with each song.
Yeah, exactly.
Each song got a little better, because the first song I was like, "This is okay." I mean, I don't.
Oh, that wasn't my reaction.
Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. I liked it, but
Yeah.
I kind of what you said. Like, I think they perfectly captured what a group of high school kids who
Yeah.
kind of dabble in instruments would sound like for the first time in a group trying to build chemistry, because
Yeah.
it takes chemistry to play together.
Mm-hmm.
But then also, like you said, trying to find their sound. And that first song, even one of the side characters says, like, it has a lot of Duran Duran influence. Like, they
Yeah.
kind of wore it on their sleeve. As they went, they really started to like build their own. Each song sounded more and more unique
Yeah.
and better and more full. They came together more and more. And I mean, it.
The way they dress changed every time.
Yeah.
They're trying to find their image.
Yeah.
But they're also growing up and trying to find their place in the world. It was like it hit all of the part. I was like, it was so good.
Yeah.
And then the lead role has to be one of the most well-written protagonists in a movie I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times the pitfalls of coming of age movies like that, when they're in high school and figuring things out, is they tend to do things that make you not like them because they're like being an annoying teenager, which makes sense because we were like that when we were
Right. I
teenagers.
mean, it's realistic.
Right. They were somehow able to make him feel like a naive kid trying to figure out the world, growing up in a terrible situation. They were somehow able to capture that and not make him seem perfect without making him cringy in any. It was like it was almost endearing the way that he fumbled through things and messed up, and the way he responded to things. Like sometimes it was a little bit like teenager-ish, but most of the time it was like, he was like a very strong person,
Right.
like one of my favorite things that they did is in the scene, by the way, spoilers from this point on, but
Oh yeah, I mean, we're gonna get into this one, so
Yeah.
please go watch it.
Yeah.
But please come back and join the discussion with us in the comments or whatever.
Mm-hmm. But the scene toward before their last show, when they're walking in the garden and then he's talking with Rafina again, I thought he was gonna do the classic thing of like, be really super depressed and sad about the girl, but then she makes that comment about his band, and he's like, "You know what? I'm not going to put up with this." And I was like, "Yeah!" And then she ended up coming back to him, and like, what was crazy about that is he started the band to impress her.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the whole reason that he even did it. But then he fell more in love with the music, and then that actually brought their relationship like closer. It was like such a well-written movie.
Yeah.
His response to his parents, his response to the headmaster or whoever at the Catholic school, like he has every reason to be bitter and angry and frustrated, and all he cares about is, I'm just gonna make music and do my thing.
The bully.
The bully, yeah, he won over the bully without ever throwing a punch.
Yeah.
And made him a part of his band. Like that was hilarious too. Like that movie had me laughing. Like every time it was a serious movie and it would like pull you in, but then they would just throw stuff in there where I just start like, it's so funny. Like whenever he walks Rafina back and then she goes off with another guy and he's like disappointed, but then the guy tries to peel away and he goes like, "Oh crap!"
And his car stalls out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, by the way, and in hindsight, I mean, I didn't realize it at the time, but that was a little bit of foreshadowing in a way, because it's like a really, really nice car, and you're like looking at him and you're like, oh, he's older and he's got a nice car and he's successful. But what you find out later is he's like kind of just putting on a front to like also impress this girl and like lie to get her to go to the city with him. And that was kind of foreshadowing of that subtly, because it was, he can't drive that nice. He doesn't know how to drive it. It's stalled out. Like, yeah.
I didn't even catch that.
Really good we talk about visual storytelling and
Mhm.
like show don't tell, that's brilliant. That was
Yeah.
really, really, and it's one of those things that in the moment you don't think twice about it. You're like, it's like a funny moment.
Yeah.
But then in hindsight, you're like, oh yeah, he was just fake all along. He couldn't
Mhm.
even drive his Porsche or whatever that was. It was, yeah. Really, really brilliant. I will, and we'll probably get a little more into it, because that might be a question I have for you. I didn't find this movie that funny.
Really?
Nah, I didn't.
Man, there
I'm
were
trying
some
to
parts where I was laughing super hard.
I'm trying to think if I laughed once. There had to be a time that I did at least like chuckle a little. But I even found myself thinking it because you had told me like, dude, it's such a good mix of like it's got some comedy, it's got drama, it's got romance. And I was sitting there watching it, and I forget at what part, but at one point I was just like, when is the funny stuff gonna happen? Like,
Really?
yeah,
I
like
thought it was funny. Well, what about the very beginning when his parents are arguing and he's like making a song? Like the very first scene.
I okay, so I guess I'll put it like this. I could understand just like talking about it on paper, like on a podcast, like discussing it, where there were clearly scenes that were written with the intent of trying to lighten the mood a little bit because it is a pretty heavy movie. Especially when it starts out like that. I mean, it literally opens, like he said, with him sitting in his room alone with a guitar. He's not playing it very well, which is kind of the point.
Yeah.
And he's writing, and while he's writing, you can hear what you assume correctly are his parents arguing loudly in the background. And then he kind of turns and shuts the door because they're like bothering him. But the sound is still coming in. So he just starts writing
Yeah.
lyrics of what they're saying. Kind of clever, kind of funny. It didn't make me laugh. It made me sad.
Well, yeah. But, I mean, that the whole humor in that movie is like slightly dark humor because
Right.
you're making. I actually think in some ways almost all humor has some kind of dark. Not almost. Well, almost all, but not 100% of it
Yeah. I mean,
because
you're right.
you make light. That's
Yeah.
one of the ways that you cope with things.
That's fair. I'm not saying I fault the movie for it, but I'm just saying I don't think I laughed during this. Like
Man,
it was pretty heavy.
you didn't laugh when he stalled out.
No,
Man, I thought that was so funny.
it kind of just made me like be like, wow, like she's gonna ride off of this loser. Like he's stalling the car
Okay,
out, and
what about with the first music video that they did, and or what about when he's lying to her? He's like, yeah, I totally have a band, and then she comes to the music video, and then they're like dressed the way they're dressed. It's like they're clearly just a bunch of kids trying to figure it out, and then
I mean, I didn't laugh. Again, like I found it cute. Like that was a part that I was like, oh, that's kind of cute. Like they're
yeah,
kid, like you said, they're kids. They're trying to figure it out, and you know, she's now seeing that for sure. Like she probably already kind of knew, but she like now knows for sure this was all just like to get her attention or
mm-hmm,
whatever. But I like that she still showed up, and I really liked that she tried to help them with their look a little bit, and she still did the video. Like she could have been stuck up about it. That's what I thought for sure. I was like, well, she's about to leave, and
mm-hmm,
she didn't. And again, you go back to just really well written character. Like
yeah,
they did a good job of letting you know she's troubled without making her a complete jerk,
yeah,
like a cold hearted jerk. Like
mm-hmm,
that's why I believed their relationship as it grew throughout the movie.
yeah.
Um, but no, I didn't laugh at that.
Man,
I,
I
I
was laughing hard. Like I was like, and then at the end of the music video when it's like dun, and she's like doing that, and
yeah,
it's like it's just funny. I think part of it's funny because I remember trying to make music videos and stuff, and
yeah.
it just I listen back to it and I'm like, gosh, it's so bad.
Well, and I mean, I will say maybe part of the reason I didn't laugh. Okay, so let me also give you a little insight on my take on one of my takeaways from this movie. I even right now still don't fully believe that this movie is not somewhat based on some true story.
Hmm.
This movie felt too real. Like
Yeah.
it felt too specific, too real, too genuine. The chemistry was like this was for an indie film, this was a passion project for someone.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was that well written and just about any director could have captured it because it was written that well. I don't know if it was the director just it hit him the right way where he just put everything into the I don't know if it's some combination. I don't know enough about it. I really want to do some more digging on this, and had I had more
Well,
time, I
I
would
do
have.
know
But
that Freddie Walsh-Peelo, I think both him, it might have been just his parents, but I think both him and his parents actually went to Sing Street, the school.
oh wow, okay. Well, I didn't know that. That's interesting. But I mean, watching this, I just kept feeling like, dude, I'm watching a real uh like music bio film,
Yeah.
like the NWA movie or the one about Def Leppard or the Temptations. Like I like I'm like, this is a real. I don't know who this is. I don't know who this is. Maybe they just changed the name of the band or something, but
Hmm.
like this is real. And because of that, or really not because of it, but the things that made me feel that way were moments like that music video scene. Because, and I'm sure you also grew up listening to a lot of like 80s music and things like that.
Not really.
Oh,
I
really?
didn't really like 80s music growing up. I
Well,
like it a lot more now.
I didn't either. I mean, it's never been my favorite, but when I was getting into like, my parents were showing me a lot of like the stuff they listened to growing up, and a lot of their stuff was a little more of the harder stuff, like actual like rock, AC/DC and Guns N' Roses and all that stuff. But you get into that, you kind of naturally, the other side of the music world at that time was like the 80s, like pop sounding stuff. And my mom did love like Duran Duran and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So I did hear a lot of that. And I just remember always, like when I was growing up, watching those music videos, listening to those songs, and just wondering, what in the heck are they talking about? What are they like? It's so random. And the little dun, 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 dun at the end of
Yeah.
the, like, that is so something an 80s group would
Yeah.
just randomly throw that in at the end. It has nothing to do with anything in the song,
Yeah.
anything else in the video. They just threw it in. And I'm like, why? It was so real. It's so specific. Like,
Yeah.
so for me, when I watched that, I wasn't thinking, man, that's funny. I was thinking, gosh, that's accurate. Like, that's
Yeah.
so accurate. That's exactly what they do.
Maybe part of this is just a little bit of a personality
It,
difference
it
too.
may be. I'm
I'm
because
always looking for the funny parts of a movie
okay,
too.
that's fair. Yeah, I don't watch a movie like that. I know that at least about myself.
Yeah.
I like a funny movie, but if it's not clearly marketed to me as a comedy, I'm not like going into like, you have to do something pretty out of left field to make me laugh in a movie that's not really meant to be a comedy.
Like
Um,
Guardians. Well, I guess that's meant to be a
I was gonna say
comedy.
that's
Yeah.
pretty comedic.
Yeah.
I view all the Marvel movies as kind of like comedy action films. Really, I mean they have this. They've kind of adopted this whole style of like with all the little quips and jokes and sarcasm.
Yeah, that's fair.
They try and keep it light, but that they try and keep the action good enough to like appeal to everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
What about when they take the boat off to that island to have a little picnic, and they're like having a super awkward like trying to kiss, and then they like stop for a little bit, and then he like shuffles, and he goes to kiss her. She's like, "Wait, I'm eating something,"
yeah.
and that's like so funny
It
because it's
again, it was too real. It was too
that's
real.
fair.
It didn't make me laugh because I was like,
That's
"Whoa,
why
that's
it made
cringy."
me
Like,
laugh.
I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Again, just too. It's not a knock on the movie. I loved it, but
Yeah.
it was just too real. Like it, I couldn't laugh about it because I felt like I was watching two real people be awkward.
Yeah,
Like,
well, but that's why it did make me laugh because I'm like, we've all been there.
yeah, yeah. I
It's
mean,
funny because it's true.
I mean, I get it. I definitely understand, and like I said, it's for sure not a knock on them. I don't think for me, this wasn't a movie that I needed to be funny.
Hmm.
Like I went into it kind of expecting a little more laughs, just because you said that it like you found it funny, but I didn't come away from it being like, man, that wasn't funny at all. That movie was awful. I came away from it being like, well, I didn't laugh, but that movie was super entertaining. It felt so real, so genuine.
Yeah.
That I loved it.
I totally understand how you could feel that way. I'm not even upset about it. I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to think of like scenes that I thought
Right,
were
that
funny.
made you laugh. No, for
And
sure, and I'm glad because I know there was at least a part where I tried. I'll tell you, I'll give you one. One that did kind of make me go, okay, that's fine. Was when he goes and meets Ames for the first time,
oh yeah,
and he's like at his house, and the mom keeps butting into their conversation, and finally, and I mean, she's kind of trying to be supportive,
yeah,
but like it's bugging him. And he looks at him and goes, well, clearly we're not going to get any privacy here. Let's go outside. And the
Yeah.
mom goes, no smoking. And he goes, Mom, how many times do I have to tell you I don't smoke? Jump cut to him smoking in the
Yeah,
shed. I was
all
like,
of them are smoking.
all right, that's funny.
What about the first time he meets the bully? When he's like, he holds a slingshot and he goes, dance. And I was like,
Honestly, that kind of scared me.
well, it was a little scary.
I
But
was
then,
like, what the heck? This
but
kid's a psychopath.
yeah, definitely. But then he tells him to go in the stall, and then he goes, no, I'm not going to do that. And then he just goes and just walks away. It's like, what the? It's like so random.
I feel like if I had watched this with you, I would have come away with a very different
Maybe
outlook
so.
on it. Like, I don't know if I would have enjoyed it more. Because, I mean, again, this wasn't one that I
I probably would have been laughing. You wouldn't have been able to hear anything. I'm like, Daniel,
I gotta
shut
go
up.
home and rewatch it.
I'm laughing. You're crying. Like, this movie's so good. I'm like, this movie's great.
We're both crying for different reasons. No, I mean, I don't know if I would have enjoyed it more, but I definitely feel like if we had watched it together for the first time, like discovered it together,
Mm-hmm.
with your takeaway being what it was, and I just feel like we both would have come away very differently from it. Like,
Yeah.
you differently. Like, I feel like my reaction would have maybe pulled yours down to like a lower, and I feel like yours would have made me like look at it way more lighter than it was. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I loved it. I loved it. I'm not gonna call it lack of humor, but the humor that maybe didn't hit for me, we'll say it like that, did not, take away from it. I loved every bit of it. So
I can respect that.
I just thought I would throw that just because I found it interesting that I didn't, because usually, it's not hard to make me laugh. I don't think.
Yeah.
Well, it's probably harder for a movie to do it than like a person. Like,
That's fair.
if I'm hanging out with like a good friend and I just know their sense of humor, that's a little different, I guess. But I still don't think I'm like a comedy snob. I mean, I like most comedy. So.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's my take on the comedic aspect of it. But so from there I want to move to let's talk about his family.
Okay.
Let's start with the parents. So the parents are having issues.
Yeah.
And you said that, I like what you said earlier, because you said he has every reason to be bitter
Mm-hmm.
and angry and lash out or be cringy, like you said, like you typically see in a movie like this, but he doesn't. So let's talk about the family situation. His parents are having issues. They end up arguing throughout the whole movie, and then near the very end, they sit all the kids in the kitchen, and they're like, "Yeah, we're splitting up." Actually, I will say maybe that was another moment that made me laugh, was when after they said that, the older brother got up and he's like, "Well, finally, that took forever.
Yeah.
I'll go get my bags packed." That was kind of funny, but I also just really like the brother. He's probably my favorite side character in the whole
Mine too.
movie. He's amazing.
Yeah.
So what impact do you think that his family dynamic played on his, and I guess more the parents, because to me the brother's obvious, like the brother literally guided him to where he went. Do you think like the parents like played an impact in what he wrote, the genres he kind of chose to emulate, and he did a little bit of lashing out, but it was in a more reserved way, and it was more at school than anything.
Yeah.
So what do you think about like what his parents were kind of going through and like how that affected him as a character, as a person?
I mean, I think it definitely impacted his music and his friends and all that, but not directly, not in a way that you could immediately be like, obviously he's doing that because of his parents. I think he learned, like, I got the impression from him that he learned to deal with his parents' situation from a young age. He kind of had just accepted it as a part of life. And so that indirectly impacts everything that he does from that point on. But I don't think that he wasn't lashing out directly against his parents. He was just kind of like, well, this is the situation I'm in. Here's what I'll say is, like, he was experiencing school for the first time when the movie started. Like, that was a new school he got moved to,
Mm-hmm.
and we saw him figuring out how crappy this school is, like as the audience. So we were seeing his direct response to that as he was learning that, but he had been growing up in that family for a while since when the movie started.
Yeah.
So I think he probably had already gone through that with his family and accepted it. And if you, as you kind of see him go through school, you see him do the same thing with school. He kind of just accepts what it is. Like one of the things that made me like him so much was, he had when the priest, like when he had his makeup on and the priest like took him into the bathroom and like dunked him in the sink and just like threw him down. It's like he kind of, I think at that point realized I got to pick my battles. But he didn't stop. He didn't lash out. He didn't act. He kind of just settled in and was like, this is my situation, so I'm going to do what I can with it. And I think that's kind of how he was with his parents too. We just didn't get to see that transformation take place.
I guess, yeah. Again, back to some subtlety with the visual story. Like, I will say I was looking for that. I was kind of waiting for that moment. And like you
With the
said,
parents?
just him lashing out, I was waiting for it.
Oh yeah.
With me feeling like this was a real like biopic about like a real band, you know, those are really formulaic. Which is one thing I can say this one is not, which I loved about it. I kept waiting for the moment to crash out.
Yeah.
I kept waiting for the spiral down. I kept waiting for him to lose himself or like lose his cool with Rafina or his band, like start pushing everyone away. I kept waiting for him to like swing at the priest or like fight the bully. I kept waiting for all of these things. They never happened.
Yeah.
And I was looking at all the scenes when he comes back to school after the dude grabs him and like basically drowns him. I was like looking for what's he gonna do, and really what he does is he toes the line as close as he could get without going back into that. His hair, he comes back with the hair like kind of spiked up, or like the sunglasses and the different hats, and he's still doing his like his image, his style, but just no makeup.
Yeah.
And I really thought that was clever. It was he outsmarted it even more because I painted my shoes black with paint from the art room. Like,
yeah.
loved that. But as someone who's written songs of multiple, I've done I've written my hip hop stuff and did like more like sing-songy stuff with Raymond and all that before, but I don't think there's anything that can help you write better than, I don't want to say just depression, but extreme emotion.
Yeah.
Whether it's sadness or anger or happiness. For me, and this is probably where I'm going to segue into the whole thing with Ames, but we'll start with, for me, this was something that really, 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 really hit home with me. This kid is emotional, very, very emotional, but he's not very outwardly emotional.
Yeah.
He doesn't lash out. I think you'll only see him cry that one time after the guy like dunks his head in the water and like smears the soap all over his face. He cries for like a few seconds, but even then he gets back up and he just walks out of the bathroom.
Yep.
He's like you said, he just kind of accepts his situation, but you never feel like he's defeated because he always comes back and does something else. He fuels his passion. It's inspired by all of these emotions that he clearly feels. And man, it hit home with me every single time you would see this like horrible thing happen or a really great thing happen. Rafina inspired him in a really good way.
Yeah.
You see these emotions fuel the next song he writes, and like I said, the songs just get better and better and better and better. And I loved the scene where she tells him, I need you to write me a happy song.
Yeah.
Because your songs are always sad. And he was like, well, that's how I feel.
Yeah.
And he's like, what if I don't feel happy? And she goes, well, your problem is you're not happy being sad. And I was like, whoa. And then he goes to his brother. I love the brother so much.
Yeah.
He'll listen to him. And he's like, what do you think she meant by that? And he's like asking his big brother for advice and all this stuff. And then he pulls out a record and kind of tosses in the thing and like, they are happy, sad.
Yeah.
And starts playing in music so he can get another influence under his, sleeve and then another song comes out. So good, man.
Mm-hmm.
They use the emotional conflicts in this movie so well. Like you said, they toe that line to where it's so real and it hits so hard, but it never becomes cringy. It's never too edgy. It's never too over the top, but it's heavy.
Yeah.
The scene where they're after they shoot the video on the pier and they're walking back, and you find out that the girl was a victim from
Yeah.
her father abusing her.
Mm-hmm.
Man,
Yeah.
I thought we had already found out everything we were going to know about him at that point because they've already talked about him.
Mm-hmm.
And the way it gets brought up is it's such a weird combination of organic, like it didn't feel forced, but so out of left field because they weren't talking about anything like that. She kind of shoehorned it in there, and it kind of like the more you think about it, you're like, oh, she like wanted him to know that, like she trusts him now, like she's opening up to him. She like, and it's kind of beautiful, but it's really sad. Like, and man, I'm telling you, the writing. I could go on and on and on about the writing.
The writing was so good.
I'll move on to segueing from the him writing to he couldn't have done any of that without Ames.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you bring him up now because you were talking about how he never lashed out.
Right.
One of the things Claire and I talked about was like, this was one of the first buddy movies, like friendship movies we've ever seen where there was no falling out between the friends.
Right.
And I loved that because they were still able to keep the tension and the like, what's he going to do and how's his life going to turn out without them. I mean, his friend was always there for him. And I loved, he would just show up. He'd show up in the middle of the night. Want to write a song? Yeah, man, let's do it. And it was like, I remember that in high school. I was just writing songs and like doing, it was so good. Their friendship was one of my favorite things about that movie.
Oh yeah. Oh, mine too. And that was the thing. So that first time that he shows up to his door, and like you said, it's the first time that he comes there when like it's not a practice, like it's not expected. And it, like you said, it's clearly night. You don't really know what time, but it could be the middle of the night, could be 9 o'clock. It doesn't matter. The point is, he shows up at his door, he opens it, and he's like, "What's going on?" He's like, "You want to write a song?" He's like, "Yeah." Like the look on his face was like, absolutely, like, why are you even asking?
Yeah.
Get in here. And then the next, few scenes are he brought records that his brother gave him to let this guy in on, hey, okay, this is what I'm hearing, this is what I'm seeing, and blah, 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 and here's the words. And this is what Raymond and I used to do.
Yeah.
I can't play, I could barely play guitar. I can't really play guitar. I just know a little bit on guitar. So I never could put music behind anything that I envisioned or, whatever. Raymond was not good with writing, like, writing lyrics, and also like, he could put different notes and chords, like he could play anything you need him to on the guitar, but he wasn't good at like structuring it. And like we would come together, and if I heard something in my head, I would maybe kind of like hum a melody. He would find it on guitar, and then if he was playing like one thing a little high or a little low than what I was hearing, I'm like, try it like this, and he could figure it out by what just me talking. He could make it work on the guitar, and then I would write the words, and we got multiple songs written that way, and it was some of the most fun, expressive, vulnerable. I mean, it's vulnerable. Like you'll never be in. You'll almost, as an artist, never be in a more vulnerable state than creating something like an unfinished product with another human being around. Like it's a hard thing to do because artists are real picky. I mean, I'm sure you've written books, you've written songs, artists can be really picky about who hears what before it's what they would call done.
Sure.
And
I have the opposite problem.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, recently I've been more like that, but I would put things out way before it was done because I'd get excited about it. I'd be like, oh, I love it. And then I put it out, and then I would like, about like a month later, like go back and be like, ugh, why did I do that?
Well, I mean, that might just be growth.
Well, that's fair, but you're talking about that when you were starting out and you did it with Raymond. Like me and Dallas were. I mean, Dallas was maybe more like that. I think Dallas and I, when we got together and wrote, it's funny you say that about you and Raymond because that's how I felt about me and like when I saw him and Ames, I was like, that's how kind of how me and Dallas were.
Yeah.
I remember actually one time, like I would just think of a melody and like play it on the guitar, and then I'd call him, and he would like hear it and be like, all right, we're writing this today after school or something. And I remember doing that, but what was I even talking about? Oh, we kind of we would get really excited about it, and then we'd be ready to just like put it out.
Right.
And then later on we'd be like, or I don't know how Dallas felt, but I always feel like, oh man, we should have done that differently. I think he did feel that way too, because we got better as we went along. But yeah, I think but the funny thing I think about the arts is you're either one of two extremes. You're either too reserved and you're too scared to put it out because you think it's just no one's gonna like it, and you're in like everyone struggles with that to some degree, but I think there's some people who have like they really struggle with it, and then there's people on the other side who would just think it's the best thing. They're like, man, I am going to take over the world with rock and roll, baby.
Yeah.
And then they just put it all out, and before they're really ready, and that was me. I was kind of much more like this stuff is great, and anyone who doesn't like it just doesn't understand.
I mean, I feel like in a way that's a better way to be. I mean,
I don't think so.
The brother talks about that in the movie. He said, because he brings him the practice demo from their first practice, and they covered that song.
Mm-hmm.
And he like takes the tape and rips all the tape out. And he's like, okay, that made me laugh too, because he was like, you could record over tape.
Yeah.
And he was like, nope, and drops it and stomps on it. Like
Yeah.
he destroys it. And he goes, no more cover songs.
Yeah.
You're not a cover band. And he starts talking about how music is a risk.
Yeah.
He said,
he says rock and roll is a risk.
Rock and roll is a risk. Like
Yeah.
and he's right. You put it out there, and he almost verbatim kind of says what you like. Anyone who doesn't like it doesn't get it.
Yeah.
And I like that because I like it not because it's true. I like it because that's how I think you should feel as an artist. I don't think it's like I'm afraid of anything that I write or create. And I don't like that. I think a better way to be is I'm so confident in this. It might not be perfect, but I know I put time and effort into it, and I know it's good enough. And anyone who anyone who can't at least see the potential in that, they're wrong.
Yeah.
I think
that's a good way to look at it.
That's a better way to be about it.
If you're talking about potential, I think that's the best way to think about it.
Because, I mean, at the end of the day, you could have been playing for 10, 15 years and put something out, and it won't be as good as you'll be in the next year.
Yeah.
I mean, you always want to get better.
Mm-hmm. And you're always bad when you start out.
Right.
The potential word, I think, is the key there, because the pitfall of when you're someone like me, when you're too excited about it, is you have a hard time with criticism, which I did a lot.
Yeah,
and
me too.
You
still do.
Yeah, I actually think both extremes are this two sides of the same coin, which is like it's hard to take criticism. And I think
true.
if you have a balanced and realistic perspective of your art, which is, it's just a gift that you have, it doesn't define who you are, and some people are gonna hate it, and some people are gonna love it, and but what you need to keep in mind is if they tie your art to your identity, that's on them. And it's not about you as a person. It's about seeing as where can you take this and how can you grow from this? So and if you're too excited about it, or you think it's just going to take over the world, then you're not going to respond to feedback.
Right.
You need to be able to listen to what people are going to say about how to fix it, and then respond and be like, okay. And you need to have a realistic outlook, because not all criticisms are correct either. I think too many people who are this is the one thing that I will say that I don't like about a lot of people in the who are on the like business side of art, like the music labels, the publishers.
Mm-hmm.
They're all kind of losing power now because of the rise of the indie artists. But
yeah, and the internet. Yeah,
but even so, there's a lot of author podcasts and stuff where you hear the business side of people saying you have to write to market if you want to. You have to find what the market wants and write for it. Otherwise, you're just being selfish and just thinking about yourself. And I'm like, I don't think it's that simple. I think that there is a balance that you need to strike, because we watched the Tolkien movie recently. That's another fantastic film. I think you would love that film. It's I know you're not necessarily crazy about fantasy, but although you're starting to like it more now.
Well, I'm loving it now. Yeah,
that's fair. But it's more of like you can almost argue that it's a romance. I think you would like it. Anyway, watching the Tolkien movie recently made me realize, like, a lot of the people, the critics during his time didn't like what he did, and
Oh,
he was kind of like, I think, received a lot of criticism and stuff because no one had ever done what he did. Like he had like maps, he had built out this whole world, written out this history of lore,
right.
and it's like,
Created languages.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like no one had ever seen that in fiction before. It was something totally. There was no market for that, you know.
Fair. Yeah.
We wouldn't have the epic fantasy market today if
That's
it
true.
wasn't for Tolkien. And so you can't just, I will say that if you want to make money with your art, the quickest way to do it is to find what's popular, write it, create it, and then, serve it to that market. I mean, you're going to make money that way, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I think most people feel like they want to do something new and unique. And there
Right.
is a balance between taking feedback and caring about what your audience wants, but also trying to take risks and do something new.
Yeah.
I think there is a balance to strike there. And the thing I don't like about, I started all of this off by trying to make this point, but the thing I don't like about all the critics who are just like, well, you have to do it this way. And if you can't respond to feedback, then you need to grow some thick skin. It's like, well, first off, not all criticisms are correct. Like that, there is a truth to that. Like people will give you criticisms and they'll say this book is terrible. It might just be that they're the wrong audience,
Right.
or they'll say that this character doesn't have any flaws or doesn't have this or doesn't have that, and it's just simply not true.
Right.
They're just not getting it. So
Yeah.
there is that balance. It's not just strictly one side or the other. And I think that what artists really need to learn how to do is meet the demands of reality. That's how I'll put it. You gotta find what is realistic. There's a mix of, you gotta take feedback, you gotta grow some thick skin,
Mm-hmm.
but you also gotta try some things, and you gotta accept that not everyone's gonna like it. Maybe no one will like it, and that will be your feedback. But
Right.
don't let that stop you. Like take risks. Put stuff out there.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree.
I don't even know how we got down that rabbit hole.
Well, I mean, we were talking about what the older brother told him, like,
Oh
it,
yeah,
it
yeah.
being
Rock and
a
roll
risk.
is a risk.
And I would even maybe tweak that statement to this conversation to say art is a risk.
Yeah.
Any art any creative thing you do that you intend to share with any single person. I mean, shoot, if you're just good at painting, I'll give you an example. My wife, I had no idea she could paint,
I didn't either.
no idea. And a couple years ago, my grandmother, who is from Greece, was coming into town for a little bit for a big birthday, and uh, my wife wanted to make her a gift, so she went and she had some supplies, but she went and bought a little, a little bit of stuff and a little uh, easel and a canvas and all this stuff, and she kind of stenciled out freehand this scenery and then painted it from a picture of Santorini, one of the islands in Greece,
Oh, okay.
and gave it to my grandmother as a birthday gift, my yayai, as we call her, and it was beautiful. And I had no idea she could do it. Even doing that is such a risk because I mean, she's gonna love it and appreciate it and everything, but as the person who did it, all you look at, I'm not gonna speak for everyone. For me, and I know for her because that's how she felt about it, all you look at it and see is where you messed up or where you should have done this. It kind of like you were just talking about songs you put out. Like all you heard was like, man, like we've gotten better at that in even
Yeah.
the last week or two. Or man, I wish, maybe we had said this word instead of that word or hit this note. Like, you know, all you look at it and start to think is all the things you could have already done to make it better.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that's the same with any author who's put a book out, any artist who's put a drawing or a painting or a sculpture or anything out. I mean, all you're gonna look at is you're gonna look at it and see what could have been done better. And what it boils down to is, like I said, it's all a risk. And like you said, there's always going to be criticism about it, and then there's always going to be people who get it. I feel like the world is just so big and there's just so many
Yeah.
people with so many different interests. There's always going to be somebody who resonates with that.
And by the way, I don't mean to interrupt you, but
No.
that reason right there is all the more reason in the day and age that we're living in to take risks with your art. Because part of the reason that the business was so strict with labels and publishers and things like that is because they are investing huge amounts of capital into your work. So they need a huge return. So they
Right.
need their stuff to appeal to a broader audience. But
Yeah.
if you're writing for just a specific niche audience,
Mm-hmm.
then you don't need to invest a whole bunch of capital. You're just investing. So just put it out there. I'm sure that there's probably some subset group of people out there who will like it. And who knows, you might even start a whole new group yourself.
Yeah.
You know?
You might be the next Tolkien.
Exactly.
I mean, you never know.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is so beautiful about any kind of art is that, I mean, these people who made this movie, I don't know how much money, I don't know what the budget was for this film, but I mean, you could tell it wasn't like Hollywood level,
Yeah.
but it looked beautiful.
Yeah.
And the shots, there are some shots in this film that are just so artistic.
Oh, yeah.
The way they're the not only just the angling and the positioning, but just like even like some of them are like where they chose to do still shots versus, dynamic like movement shots. And then I forget the specific scene. I wish I had written it down. But there's one scene where it's a moving shot. They're panning out, but you can tell they're like walking. And it's like they chose to purposely not put it on like a gimbal or a stabilizer. And so you could kind of see the shake as they step and walk
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, like sometimes that would completely take me out of a scene, but it made me be like, oh my gosh, that just feels so real. Like,
Yeah.
this just feels like a home movie right here. Like
Yeah.
it just fit perfectly. And they don't do that in the whole movie's not shot like that.
Yeah.
So they knew they wanted that for that shot. And
Mhm.
that's brilliant. Like to know
Yeah.
those things again, it's an art. That's an art. And, they took a risk on this movie and they took a risk on getting some, I mean, I'm assuming a no name. I mean, not only because he's young, but also because I haven't seen him in anything else, but the lead actor, because they wanted someone who they could, I guess, get to sing the songs as well. And
Yeah.
that's going to narrow your field because not every actor can sing.
Yeah.
Um,
I think almost every actor in that movie is fresh, except for the Game of Thrones actor.
yeah.
I mean, and he's not even like a
Well,
super famous.
he's not like a leading man or anything,
Yeah.
well, that I know of. Granted, all these people are from Ireland, so I mean, maybe they're big in Ireland. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
It could be that.
there's not always a lot of crossover with like European, media, like cinema and America. Like it happens, but it's not like all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I really, really, really loved the brother giving him that advice. I loved that dynamic of Connor and Ames. I don't really know. I think they were saying Ames. It just reminded me of me and my buddy, being around that age and doing the same thing. Like you said, same with you. It was just really warming. It kind of got me choked up a little.
Yeah. Same here. Can I add to that?
Oh, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's actually 3 things that I want to touch on with this film before the podcast is over. Well, actually, first one is just really short and quick. There's another funny scene I just remembered.
Okay.
It had to have made you laugh. The scene where she jumps into the water and then she comes back out and then they kiss and then he says like, "What about the other guy's
Evan?
name?" Yeah, what about Evan? And she goes, "Yeah, you just ruined it." Do you remember that?
I do. I actually, again, I didn't take that as funny. I
Man,
I
thought it
took
was hilarious.
I took that as like when she did it. I was like, oh man, like that's so awesome that she did that. Cause I had a feeling I was like, she's gonna jump in the water.
Yeah.
She's not gonna do, because when he did the little fake one, everyone was like, yeah, okay. So when she went and did, I was like, she's gonna jump in the water, and sure enough, she did. I was like, yes, that's awesome. Like,
Yeah.
she believes in what they're doing so much that she did that, like ruined her whole makeup, her outfit, everything, just to. And then she's like, hey, I can't swim, and I was like, oh, holy crap! Like, she really put it all out there for this video. And he jumps in to get her, and when he was like, oh, why did you do that? And she's like, you can never do anything by half.
Yeah.
I was like, man, this girl's full of like just really good one-liners in this movie.
Yeah.
Then when he kisses her, I was like, oh snap.
Yeah.
I got chills. I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, that was a good moment for the first kiss.
Yeah.
And then when he did
That was
say
really smooth.
the thing about Evan, and
Evan?
she was like, you ruined it.
Yeah.
I could see where that might have been meant to be humorous, but for me, it was like, dang, like that hurts.
Yeah.
Like again, it felt too real
That's fair.
because like I could really see myself or like someone else like being in that situation at that age and being so confused because she didn't react badly to the kiss.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, oh, so like us? Like, what about,
Yeah.
he's thinking out loud and he
Yeah.
shouldn't have. And he regretted it. You saw it on his face.
Mm-hmm.
But then from there goes right into the thing I was talking
Yeah.
about her opening up. And man, like, it was just so smooth. Like, all the
Yeah.
transitions were so smooth.
That comment about what about Evan is another perfect example of him making a character still feel young and naive and doing semi-cringy things of like, that's something a kid would do because he's not thinking. This is his first girl that he's really trying to.
His heart's racing. They jumped in the water and
exactly.
Yeah.
But so it feels young, but it doesn't feel so bad. It doesn't feel like a teen movie,
right?
Where you're just like, like,
yeah.
oh my gosh, prom. It doesn't feel like that at all.
So that was number one.
Yeah, and then number two, is, okay. I'll do number two. I want to talk about the brother because there's some stuff that I loved about him.
His hair.
Oh yeah, dude. I want hair like that.
I would love hair like that.
His hair was cool.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons I loved his brother as a character was because everything about him is about the way he lives his life is the kind of character that you would hate in most movies.
Yeah.
He's like he smokes weed, he lives with his parents, and he's like in his 20s and he's got no ambition. And you feel a little bit bad for him because of his parents' situation, so you kind of understand why, but at the same time, it's like anyone else in that situation, you'd be like, dude, go get a job, go do something with yourself. But then his brother starting a band, like, does something in him too. And like he remembers his purpose again and stuff. And you see him slowly coming back to realizing. And then the scene where he gets, I think it was after his parents got.
It was.
Yeah.
It was like right after.
Yeah. He goes in and starts like throwing stuff. And then he tells his brother, he's like, you still have a chance to not screw this up. And he was like, you should have seen me. Like, I was going to be in your shoes. And he says, I was a jet engine, is what he said.
Yeah, he's talking about, you think they're crazy now. I was here for 6 years along with them. Imagine what they were like in their 20s when they were younger and they didn't even love each other. They only got married so they could have sex because they were raised Catholic and blah, 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 blah. And he's talking about this path you're on, I macheted it for you. You're walking it untouched.
Yeah.
Again, great line.
Yeah.
The writing is so peak. It's so good.
Yeah.
And he says, you're flying in my jet stream.
Yeah.
I was a jet engine.
That's right.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So deep. And again, had the opportunity, there's a line. They towed it. Easily, I'm sitting here thinking, this is it. This is going to be the thing where they go over the edge with it, and I'm not going to like this, because I thought for sure he was about to like overreact after how helpful and loving and guiding that he's been this whole movie. I was like, they're going to make him the bad guy now. They're going to make them have a falling out.
Yeah.
And he's going to like hit him here, or like he's going to finally lash out and break because the dam has been broken. The parents are splitting up, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't. You can see it in his face. The Connor says, I got to go to the bathroom. And he runs out, and then you see he immediately like regrets how hard he went right there.
Yeah.
And he just sits down. And I was like, wow, they are really showing restraint with these emotional breakdown. Like, they're just big enough to where you're like, that's a reasonable explosion after what you're going through, after what you've been going through and what you're now seeing is happening. But they didn't over Hollywood it. Like, they didn't. Movies, for some reason, think they have to take normal situations and blow them up to make them more entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's more entertaining because it felt real. Not every time that you're upset are you going to explode and just hit someone or just completely, this whole relationship we have, I'm going to cut it here because I'm mad right now. Like, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it doesn't happen all the time for every person. Like some people just get reasonably upset sometimes. And yeah, like you said, he's in his mid to late 20s. The movie starts with them sitting everyone down and saying that they're moving Connor to a different school, and they talk about the older brother like being like a dropout and like, oh, he's not going to do anything for it.
Mhm.
Like no one believes in him.
Yeah.
No one like Connor's the only one in that family that seems to give a crap about him,
Yeah.
and he feels that, so he reciprocates that care and that love. Um, and yeah, for him to have that little moment where he's like throwing records around, like, it was hard to watch because you like him.
Yeah.
Um, but I thought for sure it was going to be worse, and when it wasn't, I was like, man, they are doing so good with managing obstacles with realism.
Yeah.
And I love it because even in his moment of anger, he dropped a gem on his little brother because he's not wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't ever see it, but yeah, you can imagine. His life was probably pretty rough before he got siblings,
Mhm.
which is why I loved the scene after all that where him and Connor and their sister, after the split up thing, they're all in his room and then they start like playing records and getting the sister's always been like the stickler throughout the movie.
Mhm.
And they're like, she's in there smoking because, like, okay, I guess we're showing she's like, the walls are coming down. And
Yeah.
then they start dancing together. And I just thought that was so cute and so real because as someone who grew up with two siblings and as someone who grew up with a brother, I think we could both relate to sometimes things are just hard and just that special relationship of having a brother and or sister. I mean, it's a different kind of relationship, you know. I
Definitely.
mean, it's just so different. So that was another one that kind of got me. This movie really got me a few times.
Yeah.
Like
Same here.
it really got me choked up.
Yeah. It was really good.
But
So good.
I don't mean to throw you. You had a third thing as
No,
well.
that's fine. I mean, we got time. So, uh, yeah, his brother. I think his brother's my favorite side character too.
Yeah.
It's a tie. It's kind of a tie between him. Oh yeah. Hold on. Another funny scene. What about when him and Ames are riding in the park and some dude just randomly steals their bike and they just have to go run? Oh, okay. What did you catch the part at the end when him and Rafina run off into the night and some dude is just puking his guts out?
Yeah. Well,
It's so funny.
I didn't find that funny because I was like, to me, that was just put there to like show how disgusting that school is.
That's fair.
That
But
to me, that just like really one last time throws in your face, just like everyone. Put it like this: that town doesn't look that bad.
yeah.
Like the buildings, the scenery, like the car. It doesn't look run down. It doesn't look all that particularly awful. Like there's pretty park scenery and stuff like. I mean, there's pretty shots.
Yeah.
They do a good job. Again, this is brilliant visual storytelling. They do a good job of well, and I guess it's a little bit in the script too, because what I was originally going to say is everyone in there keeps talking about, man, we got to get out of this, place. They got all kinds of names for it, but
Yeah.
we got to get out of here. This place is awful. It's a trap. You won't do anything here. I was like, you look at it and it kind of looks like this, like not that regal, but I mean, it looks nice. I mean, it looks quaint.
I didn't even plan that. That does
Yeah.
kind of. I mean,
Yeah.
that could totally be in Ireland.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
no,
know where it is. But.
I mean, like it looks quaint. It
Yeah.
looks nice, and but especially at the school, and then within the homes, they really do a good job of showing like it's not really about the town. It's about who's in it, and when they're running out of that dance, and it's like kind of a high point because of everything that just happened. And then you see that, you're kind of reminded of like, to me, I took it as like, this is what they're running away from. That
Yeah.
right there. Because
Yeah.
they just had a really good moment.
Yeah.
You would almost think like, you'd be tempted to be like, we could do this here. Like, we're doing it right now. But then that jump cut from that, because they don't like show them meeting up off stage. Like, they just cut from their finishing the song to them running out. And they run, it's pitch black. And they run right past a dude puking his guts out at the school gate, and it's like that's what they're running from.
I don't disagree with any of that, but I think it's still funny. It's
No, I mean, yeah. Again, that's what I feel like. If we had watched this together, I would have had a different. Like, if you would have been laughing at stuff like that, I probably would have laughed at it and seen the humor in it.
That's
But
fair.
watching it alone and just like the emotional beats of the story hitting me how they did, I kind of looked at everything with those glasses on. Of
Yeah.
like, Yeah, man, that's rough. That's what I mean. It sucks that they feel like they have to run away from their whole lives where they kind of grew up,
Yeah.
to go be something.
Mm-hmm.
But then you see things like that, you're like, nah, I get it
Yeah.
though. Like they need to get out of there,
Yeah.
absolutely. Um, but anyway, to your other one. So in retrospect, yeah, the part that was funny, but in the moment I didn't laugh because I thought when they were sitting there writing the songs, again, because I told you, I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. I kept waiting for that moment in these kind of movies where things just go,
Yeah.
like I was waiting for it. When the person comes up and steals the bike, you only see like the back, like their lower half, and then as they go away, the back of them. I thought it was the bully's dad. And
Oh.
I thought he did that to get them to run away because they left their guitars and the notebook on the bench. I thought he
Oh.
did that, and then in a second you were going to see the bully come up and steal their stuff or like break their guitars or take the notebook or whatever. Because he
Yeah.
had told him, you don't have the power to create anything, you only have the power to stop things.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And I thought, oh man, that's metaphorical. Like,
So what I'm getting is you're just a huge pessimist.
yeah, I hate anything happy and funny. No, I mean,
No.
I thought for sure these.
That's why it was funny to me, because I was thinking, okay, what's the significance of this? And then the just next scene, and it's like, oh, so some dude just ran. It's just like a more of this town is just full of stupid stuff like
Right,
that, you know?
and yeah, and that's kind of I didn't bring it back to that, but that's another reason I was saying that is because that's another scene that just shows you visual storytelling. Oh yeah, there's just a bunch of knuckleheads in this town, and they just want to get out of here. But in retrospect, knowing nothing came of that, that is funnier now. It's just
Yeah.
like a random like,
Yeah.
oh crap, they're stealing our bike. Let's go get our bike.
They're just having a nice time in the park.
Yeah.
It was just so random to me. It's like, what?
But a lot of like, and I shouldn't say British because they're not, but I'll just
European?
say like a lot of that like European humor is like that. I don't know if you've ever seen like the British version of The Office,
Yeah,
but I
I've
mean
seen some of it.
it's a lot of it's like that. Like
Have you ever seen any of the Monty Python skits?
not the skits. I've seen bits of the movies.
Oh man, the
But
skits are hilarious, but they're full of random humor like that.
yeah, it could just be really dry
Mm-hmm.
and really like out of left field. Like I loved the BBC Sherlock Holmes with
Mm-hmm.
Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin Freeman. Love those, and they have a lot of that too.
Yeah,
But I caught that, and those make me laugh. Like those were funny.
yeah.
Um,
Well, those also aren't quite as heavy as this movie, because this movie,
yeah, that's true. They're a different. It's a different kind of thing.
that's
Yeah,
maybe why it landed for you more.
maybe
But
maybe because I knew what to expect.
I think once again, it might be a personality thing, because one of the things that I was so impressed by with the film was how they kept, like, they were dealing, like you said, with really heavy stuff that was moving me, that was
Hmm.
like almost bringing me to tears at some point, and then they would just throw these moments in there that were making me laugh,
Yeah,
like the bully example is a really good example of both things happening simultaneously, because it's like now he's in this new school, he's got this horrible bully who is like a psychopath
yeah,
asking him to dance in the stall. It's just weird. And you're like, what has he gotten himself into? And then, well, he didn't get himself into it, but you know what I mean?
right.
But then he just like kind of just looks at him really irritated and then just walks away with no mention of it. And you're just like, what?
Well,
So that's it?
me knowing how movies typically work, when that happened, and then later on the kid tells you, he's like, he's gonna be out for your blood all year.
Yeah.
That's why I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop because I was like, well, at some point we're gonna see that come to a head.
Yeah.
And again, just brilliant storytelling.
Yeah.
It does, but not in a bad way.
Yeah.
They go incorporate him. They're like, hey, we're gonna turn a weakness into a strength.
Yeah.
Instead of looking over our shoulder every day and worrying about this dude trying to ruin whatever we got going on or planned or whatever, and they've gotten a glimpse into his life when they saw in the alley when they saw his dad like smack him in the face or whatever. Like
Mm-hmm.
they know his situation's not good either, and they were like, well, A, we can relate,
Yeah.
and B, like, dude, let's link up. Like,
Yeah.
and it was brilliant.
So good.
And he doesn't skip a beat. He joins him at the show at the dance, and you see him like hooking stuff up for him, and
And then he throws the guy
throws the
outside.
one guy
That
off
was
the
funny.
stage. Yeah, yeah, that was pretty funny.
And then he just throws him off stage and goes like, "Yeah,
I love that. That's why I'm here. But yeah, no, I mean, I loved all of that. Like it was so good.
yeah."
Um, was that your third thing, or you still got a third?
No,
thing?
that was the second one. It was
okay.
the brother, and then the third thing, which, like the best scene in the entire movie. This is probably the scene that almost made me tear up. I don't tear up because I'm a man, but no, I'm just kidding.
I get it. I
I'm
get
not
it.
a man. No. The scene where they're trying to film their next video in the auditorium, and they just have like a few people there, and he wants Rafina to be there. He just keeps looking at the door, and then Drive It Like You Stole It. They're playing that song, and then he imagines everything that he pictures. It's like this. It's simultaneously such a fun scene because everyone's dancing and the song is so good. I mean, it's a bop.
Yeah, that song is amazing.
It's such a good song, and I'm like, man, they're getting really good.
Yeah.
But the things he's picturing and you realize he's imagining it is just like heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And because like his parents come in
together,
they're happy together,
Yeah.
they're dancing together. His brother comes in, he's got his hair cut, he looks cleaned up. He fights off the bully, and
Evan. He fights off
Evan
from trying to take Rafina out.
That's right. Yeah.
They get into like a classic 80s music video, like knife fight.
Exactly.
Randomly.
Yep.
Again, influenced by all these things that he's been watching on like VH1 or
Yep.
MTV or whatever with his brother. But anyway, continue.
That definitely great little insert there. But then Rafina walks in. I think she's the last to walk in. I can't remember if she's the last.
I think she's the first.
She's the first
Because she's already in there when the brother gets there, because I think the brother might have been the last one. Because he pulls up and then he walks over and Evan's got her like by the face and he goes and like and like slaps him and
and here's another thing why the main character is so incredible, because most kids, especially most young men in that situation, would be imagining themselves rescuing Rafina, and being the hero to save the damsel in distress. He is picturing his brother doing it because he wants his brother to come out of the situation of his life more than he even wants to be the hero himself.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that was so like, you just really root for this kid. You want everything to work out for him.
Yeah.
But like with the way Rafina enters, the way she's dressed, and the way she's like, and then everyone's dancing, that whole scene was just like
the priest like backflips in like an Olympic gymnast,
yes.
and then thumbs up him on the stage.
Yeah, he just that feels like his whole character is. He's just like
he just wants everyone to get it.
Yeah,
he just wants everyone to get it and get along.
Yeah. That's it.
Like even his biggest enemy in that movie, I would say, is that the priest dude, not even the bully.
Yeah.
And he just, like, you notice, you thought it was the bully that his brother beat up. I don't even think the bully's in the video. Like, in his,
I don't think he is.
He's not even imagining anything bad happening to the bully. He's just imagining everyone getting along, doing the dance routine, getting his music, like, vibing with his music. And then, like you said, imagining like his parents coming together and his brother like being the hero, because he kind of is his hero. His brother is his father figure.
Yep.
And it's, man, I'm gonna get teared up just thinking about it again. Like that's probably one of the best scenes.
Yeah.
So let me tell you mine.
Okay.
My favorite scene is probably after the show. After their gig, he goes home and you see his brother sitting in his chair in his room with a notepad.
Oh yeah.
And the door, you kind of hear like a knock, and the door opens and he peeks his head in, and his brother, he's calm now, like they've talked, they're cool, and he's like puts the notepad down. He's like, how'd the gig go? And he's like, it went good. And then like Rafina just like pokes her head in, and he's like, he gets so happy.
Yeah.
He's like, Rafina?
Yeah.
And she's happy to see him because Connor always talks about him. And they get to meet, which I had been waiting on. I was like, oh, please, just let her show up at one point at his house. Let her meet at least the brother.
Yeah.
So they meet, and then he's like, so you want to like drive us to the dock because we're gonna run away.
Yeah.
And the brother's like, do you know anyone in London?
Yeah.
No. Do you have any money? No. All right, let's go.
Yeah.
And then he takes him, and that scene on the pier
Yeah.
where he's telling him bye, and he's like, you call me when you get there. I'm not joking. And they're kind of just looking at each other because they didn't come from this like outwardly emotional family. Like they didn't come from like a huggy, lovey-dovey, like, family. They're just like, they don't know how to do it. They don't know how to let go or say bye. And they're each other's like lifeline.
Yeah.
And the last thing he does is give him the notebook paper. He's like, I wrote some lyrics. And he's like, oh. He's like, put some music to that at some time. He's like, oh, yeah, definitely. And he tucks him away, and Rafina's just kind of looking back and forth, and then she jumps up and hugs him.
Yeah.
And then after that, they hug, and you can tell like he wants to cry.
Mm-hmm.
And he walks away, and as they're driving away, I was like, man, this is gonna end on a sad note.
Yeah.
And then he just starts, yes.
Yeah.
And like, he's just so happy that he got away, that he's going, that he's getting off the island.
And then he tells his brother, I wish I would have done this.
Yeah,
it's almost like he's living through his brother right now.
Yeah.
You know?
And I'm telling you, even at that, more to your point about me being the eternal pessimist, I was like, I think they're gonna die. I thought the movie was gonna end with them go, because the waves were like this. I was like, they're gonna die. They're gonna go out here and die. This is gonna end. This is gonna be a tragedy. And then the rain.
But you have to know me that I would not have been so thrilled.
Well,
about
I
that.
thought I had remembered you saying that the ending sucked. I thought I had remembered you saying, dude, I loved everything about that movie, but the ending. The ending kind of remember, because I remember you saying, remember
that was Forrest Gump.
Well, I knew that was one too, but I thought I had remembered you saying it about this as well. And so I kept, also, I guess maybe that played a part in it, but I also, just me again, I don't know, something about how this movie was. I was just like, I'm waiting for the bad part.
Yeah.
And there really was never, I mean, there were bad things, but there was never like that massive thing. Then the rain starts pouring, and I'm like, yep, they're going to die. They're going to drown out here in the ocean. Then the huge ship comes by. I'm like, they're going to get hit by the ship. He shuts the engine off and like turns, and then the ship just goes by, and people are like waving at them, and then he's waving at them, and then they kind of look at each other and laugh. And I'm like, I don't get it. And then as the ship goes by and he turns the engine on and starts following, it's like, oh, that's the ship that goes to London that they talked about. They're gonna follow the ship. I was like, okay, all right.
Yeah, it worked out.
And then it ends, and I was like, all right. So the only gripe that I have about the movie
is that they should have died.
Yeah, I was like, you really missed an opportunity here. A sequel where they find Atlantis and they introduce them to music.
Oh yeah, there you go.
My only gripe with the movie is that I wanted to see the band make it.
Yeah.
I wanted to see them make it to London, and then like some times passed, and like maybe the band's a little bummed, just like, yeah, he forgot about us and blah blah blah. And then like they get a call or they get letters or whatever. Somehow he shows back up, something, or like maybe they all get like mysteriously invited somewhere and they all show up and he's like got a plane ready and they're gonna fly to London, and like they got some record exec there's like, y'all are gonna be big, kid. I'm talking big. You're talking, like and the brother with them. Like,
yeah,
I was waiting for that because I wanted to see a true happy ending, but I started thinking about it this morning when I woke up and was like, getting ready to come here, and we've talked about like maybe for a Patreon exclusive or whatever, doing unnecessary movie sequels. I think we could do one for this because
I don't know. Unnecessary is such a difficult word because it's not necessary, but at the same time, I think I would love a sequel to this.
Well, right.
movie.
When I say unnecessary, I just mean like I don't need it. Like, I mean, there are certain movies that clearly end setting up for a second movie.
See, but the only reason I feel that way is because of what you just said, because I completely agree. I wish they would have done more about like the band. I hate that. There's kind of like a trend. Well, trend is the wrong word. It's been around for a while, but some directors like to really leave the ending to your imagination.
Right.
Like, did they make it to London?
Right,
Did the
right.
band? I don't like that. I prefer
A closed book.
Yeah, I
What-
prefer everything to come together.
Right.
Which is just a preference thing. Obviously, that's still one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah,
It
no,
didn't
it's
take
fantastic.
away from the movie at all.
But I guess that's my thing is like the reason I would say I could put it in unnecessary movie sequels is because I feel like it was purely intentional how they ended it, and they ended it knowing like this is probably not the kind of movie that's gonna get a sequel,
Yeah.
and that's fine. They ended it with a way of like there was some closure,
Mm-hmm.
but like you said, a lot's left up to the imagination, and maybe they did do it intentionally. Of like maybe we could revisit this and like tell more of the story some
Yeah.
years down the road. I don't know if we'll ever see it because it's now 2025. That movie came out probably about 9 years ago at this point, which is wild. But
Yeah.
but all that to say, I mean, you never know. They're still talking about doing a School of Rock too.
Yeah, that's an unnecessary sequel.
Yeah, for sure.
We were actually originally going to talk about movies that that should never be rebooted, which maybe we'll do that for the next episode.
Yeah, we could.
I was gonna School of Rock was gonna be one of them. It's like, don't ever touch School of Rock. that is
Step out! Step out!
That movie is like my generation's rock movie. I mean,
Yeah.
that movie is so good.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, we'll have to compile a little list there. I'm gonna take that one pretty serious. Like to say it never should be touched, I'm gonna have to really think about.
that's interesting because I'm the opposite. I'm like, I can list them off. Bing, bang, boom. I'm like, don't touch this.
Well,
don't touch that.
But you're not a fan of that in general, though. I don't mind
Not necessarily. I don't mind it if it's done with the right thing or with the right intention. Like, I think reboots should be done for movies that maybe didn't get a fair shot when they came out. And it's like, we think we can do this in a way that's going to help get the movie attention now. Like Freaky Friday was a good example. I know that's kind of a funny example. That was a movie in the 70s. I don't think it really got much attention, but it got remade in the early 2000s with Lindsay Lohan and Jamie Lee Curtis, and it was a hit. And it was really funny and really
they're
good.
doing a sequel to that.
No way.
Yeah.
Not with the same actors?
Yeah, like a sequel, not a reboot.
That's ridiculous. That's as bad as a reboot to me. That's a movie that's
See,
finished.
that's what I'm saying. You're not, in general,
but
you're typically not a fan of it.
Well, no, but I just gave you the
Right,
criteria.
No,
for
yeah,
it.
I get
Like,
it. But I guess what I'm saying is like I feel like it would be harder, like a lot harder, like almost impossible for you to give me a list of 10 movies that you were like, this definitely could do with a reboot.
oh, I can think of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I would probably get a lot of flack for this, but I think Terminator could be redone in a way that would be more interesting. I know a lot of Terminator fans would be like, nah. The only exception being Terminator 2 couldn't be redone because that was like, don't mess with perfection.
So you're saying like if they did it, they'd have to just remake the first one and then leave them alone. Like
Yeah.
you think the first one could do with a reboot, but we don't need all the other ones like done.
Yeah. You could just the concept of it. You could redo it.
That's fair. I mean, technically, the first one kind of tells a different story since he's a villain in the first one.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
Okay, I could get behind that.
Yeah.
That's fair.
This is interesting now because now I'm trying to think of stuff, but like, there's a bunch of old movies I think that didn't really get partly because of the they didn't have the CGI stuff to make it work.
Yeah,
they didn't have the technology. They didn't have. There's a bunch of stuff. I mean, I'm not against reboots, but I think it should be done for movies that didn't really get the right attention. That it was a good story and a good premise, but maybe it wasn't executed the right way. Like when they redid Hulk. It's a little different because they redo superhero movies all the time, and I'm sick of it. Like there's a new Superman coming out now, and I'm like, why do we need another one?
Because it looks amazing.
All right.
And James Gunn is a really good director.
Well, that is the one thing I'll give it credit for is it's like that is an interesting spin on it. Is like the Guardians director is now directing the new Superman, so that's interesting. But I'm also like, why can't we just do something like we've had enough of Superman? At least in my, but maybe I'm just not the
Well,
audience for that genre.
I'll give you a quick, just because I know this isn't the point. I'll give you a quick, just a different point of view on that. You know, the MCU came along and like blew up.
Yeah.
No one had ever done anything like it, ever. And then everyone was trying to do something like it.
Yeah.
Still are, really. Everyone wants to do a connected universe.
Yeah.
Not everyone is equipped to do that successfully. DC is arguably, in my opinion, the only other like company that I think is justified in even trying. And
I disagree, but go ahead.
okay, maybe that'll be a topic. I'd have to I'd have to know where you're going with that. We'll talk later about it. But anyway, because of the fact that they too are a comic company with access to all these characters, that a lot of them have really rich lore and stories, and just you got decades and decades and decades of content to pull from to tell compelling stories in a movie format, kind of like Marvel's doing or was doing. You could argue they've gotten worse, whatever. Point is, I think DC is, I'll say, one of very few, at least, companies that's set up to do that as successfully.
Sure.
They've never really gotten to do it because when they tried with Snyder behind the wheel, it was just too polarizing. It was too divisive. Snyder tells a story, a superhero story, more like a straight up action flick, a little edgier, a little darker, a little grittier. And that was kind of the tone that the DC universe had with like Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Justice League, all that stuff. Aquaman, like all those movies were, they had like a little bit of a darker color palette. They were a little darker toned, a little edgier with the action. I mean, people talk about how Batman used a gun, and like hardcore Batman fans hated that, like hated that. But that's kind of Zack Snyder's style.
Yeah.
And that's fair. I mean, it's fine, whatever. It's his movies, but James Gunn is now in charge over there. He's like the Kevin Feige of the DC side now. And his whole thing is he wants to, especially, that's why he's starting with Superman. This new Superman movie is starting the new like DC movie universe. And he wants to bring it back to like what Superman was all about, like positivity, truth, justice, the American way, all that stuff. Like he wants to bring
all that
crap.
That's what you made it sound like.
Like he wants to bring Superman back to being like a heartfelt, positive, happy character, not like a brooding. I mean, Batman's always been the brooding, gloomy, side of DC. That's why Superman and Batman's dynamic is supposed to be so classic, is because you have Superman who's this like eternally optimistic, like always sees the good in humanity and people, versus Batman who lives in like a dump of a city with a bunch of psychopaths, and he's like constantly fighting the most dark and twisted, villains that he.
It's like Superman is Captain America and Batman is Iron Man.
Kind of, but even more extreme.
Yeah, I mean, and they're not the same, but I'm saying they're DC's version of
that
dynamic.
Right. Two sides of the same coin. Like they're both good guys, but yeah, have a little bit of different outlook on some things.
Yeah.
And yes, I would agree. That's an apt comparison. And Zack Snyder really never got to set that up the right way. I think a lot of it had to do with the company was rushing him because they wanted to catch up to Marvel. Well, we got to hurry and get a Justice League out there because they got Avengers already. Well, they've been working on it for 10 years. Like you put out 2 movies. Like let's build. Anyway, long story short, the point is, I think that this reboot, I give a slide because I think it's justified. It's setting up a whole new thing. It's a whole new tone, and I'd like to see where this goes as a whole, like as a universe. So we'll see. But I know you're kind of tired of seeing rehashes of stories and characters and blah blah blah. I will say this isn't an origin story. In this movie, Superman's apparently been around already for like a while. Like
that's good. At least.
You're gonna see a lot of other characters. Like he's starting it in an already established DC.
That makes sense.
So it's a little different.
So that is good. Is Robert Pattinson's Batman in this universe?
Well, we don't know because there's been two conflicting things that have both been pretty confirmed true. So one of them is that yes, like because of the success of that movie and like everyone really enjoying him as a young Batman or whatever, half the people are like, "Oh yeah, no, he's for sure going to be the Batman in this." The other half, which personally I agree more with, is what I originally heard James Gunn say is that that will be its own thing. Like though the Matt Reeves, Robert Pattinson Batman movies, we're going to let them do their own thing cuz they have their own vision for that. And those are a lot like darker and grittier in tone and a lot more like grounded. And the Superman like side, like the DCU, like the more expanded one, he wants it to be a lot more comic booky, like a lot more representative of what a real comic book is like, where like anything could happen. If you watch that Superman trailer, it's got like Crypto the Wonder Dog in it. Like I could never imagine those kind of characters in that Matt Reeves universe. So
Yeah.
the crossover to me would be a little jarring. The idea was that James Gunn was going to get a new actor to play a different Batman in that side of it, and he'd probably like have a Robin and like all this, and it would just feel a lot more fluid with those. I personally am fine. I've never understood why we're like to a point still where people think there can't be two actors actively portraying the same character but in different like storyline. Like, I mean, it's very clear they're different people in different movies and stories. I don't know, but that's a thing that studios have always tried to avoid. So it will be a first if he does that. It'll be the first time we see two different people playing the same character but differently and in different things.
Yeah.
We'll see where it goes, but
Well, I half agree. I agree with some of the things you said. I think I just would have a different takeaway. So I do agree that DC is the only other like organization or whatever you want to call it that has the capability to do what Marvel did. Like they have the characters and the comic book lines and the history and stuff like that. But I don't think that they should do it because since part of the reason I think that the original attempt to do it failed was one because of what you said. It's like, well, MCU, we got to do it, and it's like, we got to build for a little bit, and they just jumped the gun. James Gunn. That's why my comedy career didn't work out. But
because after every joke you went, hey.
No, that might have made it work actually. The more I think about it, hey guys, hear the one about? Okay, no. As I'm doing it, I'm like, nah. This
Hear
sucks.
the one about vegan lipstick? They're mad at me for eating meat, but they're eating lipstick. That was a good one.
Pretty
dude.
good.
That was a good. Wait, that was your joke. What do you mean that was pretty good?
I didn't realize you were going to give that away to the audience. So
Oh,
I was trying
no.
to pretend like you just made that up.
No,
Yeah.
I would never do that to you.
Well,
no.
I was eventually going to be like, that was my joke, but
No, I give you credit for that. That was a good. That was a good one.
Thank you.
I don't care. That should have killed.
the delivery was off. But well, that was that was the only joke.
Sorry, I butchered your material.
That was the only joke that got laughs every time. Actually,
Oh yeah.
yeah. So
I mean, it deserves it. That's a
Well,
good
thank
one.
you.
That one's clever.
I think that's the only joke that worked at all. There was only one other joke that I had where every single time it was the same thing. It was like 90% of the room was dead silent, but like 5 people in the back corner thought it was the funniest joke they ever heard. Every time I did it, it was so weird.
Fair enough.
There was like one person going, and everyone else was just like, I don't get it. I don't even know how it. Okay, so DC. I think you're right that they're the only ones who have the capability to do it, but I don't think that means that they should. Partially because of what you said, where like they need to build if they're going to do it. But also because from this point on, it's just going to seem like they're doing what we were actually talking about earlier, which is the right to market thing, which this is what the market wants. Everyone's doing a multiverse. We got to do a multiverse now. And it feels like Marvel did that successfully, and now DC is trying to like, all right, well, they did a multiverse. Now how are we going to do it? And I'm like, just do your own thing. Like they found a way to do something that hadn't really been done before. That's why it's popular right now. And people miss that. And everyone's trying to do the multiverse thing now. And it's like multiverse is popular. We got to put, that's what I think a lot of, people who are very focused on the market would say. It's like multiverse is kind of the thing. We got to do a multiverse story. And it's like, it wasn't the thing until Marvel made it the thing, though, because they they decided to do something kind of unique. They put this really unique spin on. And for a while there, I was getting tired of all the superhero movies until I realized what they were doing. And then I saw Avengers, the first Avengers, and I was like, oh, all these movies are like, they're doing like the whole connection thing. And then I saw they were introducing more movies. I'm like, these are all the same. That's really cool.
Well, I'm going to be honest. If we're giving credit where it's due, and I'm sure even this is not really the first one to do it, period. I'm sure, honestly, I would venture to guess certain authors did it first, because a lot of these big concepts and ideas that you see play out in TV shows and movies are actually coming from books.
Well, yeah.
And a lot of people just don't know it. But Rick and Morty was doing it before Marvel did it. I mean, Rick and Morty is really what brought that whole multiverse thing to like it gained a ton of popularity.
Well, sort of. Rick and Morty, the multiverse was actually a scientific theory that was developed.
Well, right. That's what I'm saying as far as like pop culture goes.
Yeah, as far as importing it there. I totally get that. But that Marvel did it in a way that was totally unique to film. You know, I'm not saying you can't take ideas from authors or from everyone steals ideas to some extent, but they made it their own thing in a way.
Yeah.
And a DCU is literally a copy of the MCU. It's just a DC version of what you get with Marvel. And maybe it'll be really cool and it'll work out, but I prefer for DC to think about, all right, what makes DC DC? Like, what do people love about DC Comics? And how can we incorporate in that film in a unique way that makes it feel like this is going to be something different than what you get with Marvel, you know?
Yeah.
But just as satisfying, you know?
Well, I think that's why it was so brilliant for them to go out and get James Gunn to head up the whole department, because he's had success on that other side. He knows, first of all, he knows what it takes to get a movie to that point.
I sort of agree. I think that is a good move because everyone's like, the Guardians director, that's a cool spin. But at the same time, it's really just telling you we got a Marvel guy because DC can't do it as good as Marvel. So we're going to get Marvel. We're basically going to bring Marvel over to DC.
Well, but the thing of it is, James Gunn is also really big on like he wants to bring in a lot of fresh faces. Like he's not going to do every movie. He's doing Superman because it's, first of all, such a tent pole. I mean, it's probably one of his favorite characters, and it meant a lot to him. So he's doing that one to get it kicked off. But he really wants to bring in some fresh faces as far as directors, writers, to like kind of hand these these IPs off to them and like really let them do their thing. Like, you're probably, what I think is going to become the defining factor for the DCU versus the MCU is, and I don't necessarily mean this negatively, but it is a fact. And some people are okay with it, like me, and some people hate it. They can't stand it, like majority of everyone else. The MCU has become extremely, extremely formulaic, very cookie cutter, to the point where it's like almost like a joke that people, oh, so when does the good guy fight the bad guy who's just a bad version of the good guy? And when does the big blue sky beam shoot up? Like, I mean, that all of like phase 1 and 2 and 3, like that was the joke. It was like every movie ended with a bad and good version of basically the same character fighting. Ant-Man and Yellow Jacket, Iron Man and bigger Iron Man and Iron Man 1, like things like, that. And then a lot of movies for some reason had like a giant blue beam that shot up into like a weird amount of those movies had that. And I never noticed it until the people started talking about it. I was like, holy crap, that is true.
Yeah.
They just became so formulaic. And even in how they pace their movies, the humor, it's all the same. Like, and for me, it's okay because I'm kind of a comfort movie watcher. Like, so it's cool to me to get all these new characters and new stories, but like kind of know what I'm in for. So I'm okay with it. Some are better than others. I can't deny that. I wouldn't mind a little bit of variety, but it doesn't so much detract from it that I can't watch them. But a lot of other people are really sick of it. And I think what's going to end up kind of becoming the defining factor for the DCU and for where they're heading, and probably what's going to end up, just because people are so tired of Marvel at this point, kind of making DC the new big dogs probably in the next 5 or so years, is the fact that James Gunn is so adamant about not only getting like new direct, like not just the same old guys, that have been doing, but like he wants new faces as producers, directors, writers, and all this stuff. He wants new. And not only that, he's big because he's done that. He's been that
Mhm.
guy. He's big on giving them a lot of creative control. So you're going to see probably a lot of different styles, and it's gonna fit. I mean, there's gonna be an overall big picture, but like it probably won't all look the exact same kind of how the Marvel films do. If you've ever watched like a compilation on YouTube of Marvel scenes, they can be cut together and edited so smoothly because they all are color toned the exact same way. And a lot of the movement in them, like even like in the action scenes and stuff, it literally just flows right into it. It's like they all look identical. Again, I don't necessarily say that as a bad thing, but it is true. And I don't think that's going to be the case. I think you're going to see, whenever he does get to his version of Batman, I think you're going to see a much different version of how Batman's movie will look versus how this Superman movie is going to look. He's already got a Green Lantern cast. The Green Lantern movie is going to look completely different than the Batman and the Superman movie. You've already got, if what he says is true and what I've heard is true, you're already going to have two different kinds of Batman.
Yeah.
A more gritty, like kind of dark detective tone esque one, and then probably a more comic booky, like, you know, still Batman, but a little more light and probably a little more like fitting with his overall thing. But
I didn't like the Robert Pattinson Batman.
what?
Yeah. I know that's unpopular.
Wow. Why?
I liked some things about it, but well, let me just finish adding to what you're saying. I see what you're saying, and I think that is going to be what defines DC, but I still think you're just ultimately, you're doing the multiverse because Marvel did the multiverse, and you're doing a DC version of it, but you got your...
Well, they're not doing the multiverse.
Oh, they're not? They're not connecting these movies?
No, that's what I'm saying is like, if he puts Pattinson in the thing, it won't be like combining two. It'll just be like, well, this is Gotham and this is Metropolis, and that's why they look so different, kind of thing. But if they go with their own Batman and leave the Pattinson thing to be its own, like in the comics, there's this thing called Elseworld stories where it's like it's DC, it's their characters, but it's like in a whole different. You could call it multiverse or whatever, but like it's just this non-canon, non-connected thing that's happening. It's like a whole different. Like, don't even worry about it. It doesn't.
Yeah, but you're saying they casted a Green Lantern and everything, right? Is he's going to appear with Superman in movies, right?
Right, but not because he's
that's
from
a
a different
multiverse.
universe. He's just out in space.
Oh, sorry, not multiverse. My bad. I'm not trying to say multiverse. Cinematic universe. They're in the same universe.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they're gonna do this thing where they have like this main group because they want. I think they want to do a Justice League movie and do it justice. Yeah. No pun intended.
I have been saying multiverse this entire time, and when we were talking about Rick and Morty, and I've been thinking in my head the cinematic universe. That's what I'm trying to say. Not
okay.
I mean, the multiverse is the thing that people are hopping on now too, but
which is why I was like, oh no. Well, I mean,
yeah. So what I meant was the cinematic universe where you have all these different movies and they're all connected. That's what I meant to say.
Fair.
And DC is just gonna have their own version of that.
Oh yeah.
But why I didn't like the Batman movie, there's things I liked a lot about it. I'll say that first. Robert Pattinson is an interesting Batman. I like his kind of. He feels like someone. Why I understand why everyone thinks he's a freak because he's so kind of weird and quiet.
Yeah.
And
he hasn't learned to be Bruce Wayne yet.
Yeah. I like the detective aspect of it, and the cinematography was incredible in that movie.
Yeah.
I love the cinematography. I said cinematography.
That's what it kind of sounded like, but I was like, nah, maybe I heard that wrong.
No.
That does sound delicious.
It does. We should start our own dessert store. Let's forget this podcast. We have found our calling.
Cinematography.
I forgot what I was even saying now. Oh yeah, so
how much you love the Batman.
I didn't like, for one, they hinted at Joker at the end, and I'm like, God, enough with the Joker.
Okay, I agree with you on that.
Like,
I hated that.
It's so overdone. Like, Heath Ledger did a great job. Let's leave it at that, man. Yeah. We all think Heath Ledger did great. We don't need more. Just stop, okay? Just chill.
I will. I will. Maybe I'm not that. I don't think you could have a Batman.
Yes, you can.
If you if you're only gonna make it last like a couple movies, maybe even 3, I do think he's got a wide enough range, like a big enough rogues gallery of like classic villains that have never been touched to do them without Joker. But like, if you're gonna have him stick around for 4 or 5 movies, eventually it needs to come to a head where Joker is not only his most iconic villain, but like most people, there have been tons of polls like that have polled the whole world on like in all of fiction most iconic villains. I don't think Joker's ever been lower than like 2 or 3. I mean, he's like up there. I agree with you. He should not be the like let's always go with Joker, like right?
Yeah.
Like there's other
But
good villains, but
you're right, but this is an argument for why let's just forget about Batman. I mean, let's why don't we do something new? Like, there's other superheroes out there. There's other comic book lines out there. I mean, we've seen Batman, we've seen Joker, we've seen all this stuff before. And maybe it's just that I'm not the audience, because if people who love comic book films really like other adaptations and stuff, then you can keep making them for them. But I'm just tired of it personally. But
I was gonna say, I mean, like, it, if everyone felt like that, comics as a whole, like anything related, they would all cease to exist, because the reason they keep making these films is because even in a day and age where comics and like the comic industry is dying, those comics still sell because people are still that enthralled by these characters and the stories they get
sure,
into, and seeing what the
it's
new feats they're gonna accomplish.
it's
And
the easiest, quickest way to make money.
that
I mean,
too.
that,
I mean,
that's
they're,
and
they're tentpole.
I'm not even saying that's a bad thing. I'm not saying that to be like I'm not saying it's a greedy cash grab. It's like you're a business and you love these stories, you love these characters. It doesn't mean you're not passionate about it and you don't want to do a good job, but you love them, you're passionate, and people want them. So you can make it and make money, and you need to make money to be able to keep doing what you love to do.
Right. And you've read The Name of the Wind.
Yeah.
How badly would you like to see a well done movie?
Well, that's something totally different.
But I'm just saying, you've read it. It was something you enjoyed. How much would you love to see that in like a movie format
I
if
mean,
it was well done?
yeah, I would love it, but I wouldn't want 60 adaptations of that movie format.
Right. But the difference is that's one story. Batman has decades and decades of like totally different like just arcs and I mean like
Yeah, but
comics are a lot different.
Even as
in
a
that way.
reader, they are different in that way. And that's why I'm saying maybe I'm not the right audience. But as a reader, I wouldn't want several different versions of The Name of the Wind and like a different kind of Kavoth who does different. I mean, I'm happy with the story. I want something new. That's part of that's a personal preference thing. Novels don't ever do that. That's the thing unique to comics. So it makes sense why comic book movies are like that, because they're making movies that
I think
are like
in that way at least. I mean, I think you're the targeted audience in the sense that you tend to enjoy a good bit of them. But yeah, I think in that way, maybe like you said, that like you're just not the audience for that, because if that's something that would like get old to you, I feel like most comic book people are like, dude, I can't wait till they do this, this story in movie. Like I got to see this in either like a long form show or like something. I got to see this in action some way.
Yeah.
So
well, that's fair. But the biggest reason I didn't like the Robert Pattinson Batman. Well, let me finish with the last thing that I liked. The action was great. I love the way he fought. That was really cool.
Yeah.
The thing I didn't like about him is that he never. So the first fight scene where he beats those guys up and he's like, "I'm vengeance." I was like, "That's sweet." And then the whole movie, he like fails the entire time. He never even catches a bad guy. I hated the Riddler. I hated the take on the Riddler. He was weird. The acting was weird. When he just starts screaming in the interrogation room, it came off as not interrogation room, in the prison cell. It just came off as weird. The Riddler turns himself in. I guess he does technically catch the Penguin, but he doesn't actually ever stop the bad guys from doing anything. And then at the end, he comes in after everything's already bad has already happened, and he tries to help clean up. And then he's like acts like like a fireman, like rescuing people. And then he's like, "Oh, I have to be more than vengeance." And it's like the whole point of Batman is that you're this dark knight who beats the crap out of criminals. And it felt like the whole movie was being like, "No, that's too dark. I got to be a little softer than that." And I was like, that makes Batman way less fun. When he did the whole "I'm vengeance" thing, I was like, That's Batman right there. And then the whole movie was about, no, I gotta be less than that because I didn't win it all. And he never stopped the bad guy. Like he never won, other than when he caught Penguin.
I disagree.
Well, we are coming up on time, just so you know.
Okay.
But
I'll keep it brief, or as brief as I'm capable of. You may just have to cut some of this. Like maybe just the end of the podcast is me rambling as you slowly fade me out, and we just go to black. And we'll start the next one up with me rambling. And no, I'll try and keep it concise. But
podcast stops right there.
Dang it. The whole point of that movie in particular is that he's young. There's a Batman. It's a one of the most famous Batman like story arcs or whatever in Batman comics called Batman Year One, and it was kind of the reset point for like modern Batman comics. I don't know exactly what year it came out, but anyone who tells you, like anyone who's big into comics and you're like, man, I love Batman, but I don't know where to start. They'll be like, start with Year One, because anything before it really doesn't matter anymore. Anything that like matters to who Batman is today, anything canon that could remotely start there. And it really does alleviate a lot of that stuff that came out in like the 60s and 70s and 80s, because that's a ton. So you start there. And this was kind of based around that. This movie, this version of Batman, he's only been Batman for
2 years.
Yeah, like 2 years. And by the way, you notice he says, I'm vengeance. Everyone in the movie calls him Vengeance. They don't even know that he's Batman. Like, he has not made a mark yet as far as, like, Gordon knows him. Like, he's already got the signal. But no one, like, the paper calls him Vengeance. The criminals call him Vengeance. Like, no one even knows him as Batman. We talked about, kind of briefly, he's not even Bruce Wayne really yet. Like, he's not like how Christian Bale played Bruce Wayne. Like, you know, because you have to. I mean, you have to put on that act so that people don't get like you were like, yeah, like I could see him as a weirdo. Who, yeah, that's the problem. It's like, you know, you're suspicious that way. You know, you look like you could be someone who goes. He hasn't learned to put that mask on yet. He hasn't learned that there's a balance between just beating people out of like you being upset about what happened to your family versus like actual bringing these criminals to justice. Still beating them up. I mean, he's not like, I never thought the point was like, oh man, I got to stop, you know, hurting these guys. I always viewed the point as like, I need to do what I'm doing, but like for the average person, I need to be more of like a symbol to them of like, this city is awful, but like there's hope. And Batman's always been that for Gotham the way Superman's been that for Metropolis and things like that. Like, I mean, it's a lot different because Gotham is inherently a darker vibe kind of city, and it's a lot grungier and dirtier, and just there's literal psychos versus like Superman fights like monsters and aliens a lot of the time. Like Superman's main nemesis is like a businessman dude who's just really smart. And Batman's is a literal psychopathic, like, you know, serial murderer clown dude. Yeah. Like, I mean, they're very different. But the point is, in this movie, he's still learning to become Batman. He's not even Batman yet, really. He dresses that way, and he knows what he's trying to do, but he hasn't become what he's going to be yet.
Well, the problem with that, though, is like Christian Bale. The only thing I really disliked about Christian Bale's Batman was his voice. His voice was dumb. Other than that, he's been my favorite Batman. And the problem with your argument, in the Robert Pattinson one, he's already been Batman for 2 years. In Batman Begins, he becomes Batman, and it's like his whole life was leading up to that moment. And then he's perfectly Bruce Wayne and Batman. And I mean, it takes him a little bit to kind of figure out how to be Batman in the one movie, but then he figures it out. And, you know, he ends up defeating Ra's al Ghul. Right. Whatever. So,
well, I mean, so
I had the opposite. I was like, this guy's been Batman for 2 years and he's not really doing anything. He's just
Well, I think first of all they're portraying him as a version that I think they're trying to make it a little more real. Again, they're basing it off a specific comic, and in that comic, I think he is a little like rustier at it. Like he's really trying to figure it out. Like that, I think that comic was supposed to be a lot more of a realistic take on like, well, what if a real human being went and did this? Like trained their body, trained their mind, put all their resources into like, like he's got money, but like you saw his like bat cave in this movie. It's not like all elaborate and crazy. Like it kind of looks like a rundown like garage almost. And I think in the second movie, you're gonna see a huge jump in a lot of things. I think you're gonna see him be a little more sociable as Bruce Wayne. I think you're gonna see a more effective Batman. I think you're gonna see a different, more like put together suit. Probably an upgrade to the Batmobile. Probably an upgrade to the Bat Cave. All his stuff. Like I think they're trying to portray him as like someone who was still really trying to get everything together and make it a little more realistic. And some people don't like that, and that's kind of what I'm saying. Like I think that was kind of James Gunn's whole thing of like why he doesn't want it in the DCU, because first of all the DCU, like it's kind of basically saying that it's been established for a while, and also on top of that, it's not real. It's kind of meant to be more fantastical and comic booky, where like any zany thing could happen. I can't picture, just any old thing happening like in the Batman. Yeah, it's a very grounded take. And to be fair, the Dark Knight trilogy started that. Like that was the first comic book movies that came out that were like, well, we're gonna make this a lot more like realistic.
Yeah.
And this movie took it and kind of amped that up a little bit. Because like you said, I mean, it's not realistic that he would go train for like 8 months and then just know how to be Batman. I mean, that it makes for an entertaining movie, and maybe the pacing's a little better for some people, and I get that. I like those movies. I didn't hate his voice. The thing I hated most about those movies is the action. That he's horrible. No real Batman would fight the way he fights in that movie. He's so stiff, and he's just like,
That's fair.
I mean, he looks awful, but it was the costume voice too. Yeah. And the voice did get worse as the movies went on.
Yeah.
Like in the first one, it's actually, I don't know how long it's been. If you go back and watch Batman Begins,
it's not as bad.
It's not
bad.
bad. He's more like doing like this, like to kind of change it.
The scene where he's like, where he grapples the guy up.
Yeah.
He like shakes his face. He's like, it is the
swear to me.
Yeah, it's so bad. It's like the way he shakes his face. It just looks like he's like.
Well, his whole thing is intimidation.
Well, that wouldn't intimidate me. I'd be like,
intimidate me. Some dude dressed like that. I'm hanging upside down from a roof.
Well, it would intimidate me in the sense that I was like, this guy is on drugs. This guy's having a bad trip right now.
And I'm about to have a bad one off of this roof.
We'll have to do an episode on this, but probably we should talk about the new Superman and stuff and the DCU and stuff.
Yeah, maybe we'll have to have a whole comic book movie. I mean, this year, we're in 2025 now. This is our first episode in 2025.
Right.
And
is it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, you're right.
So, we're in the new year now. It's about to be on as far as releases. Like the strikes kind of ruined everything from last year. We didn't really get that much good stuff, but we picked a good time to kind of get this off the ground and going, because this year is going to have a lot. You got next month, Captain America 4. You got Fantastic Four coming out in the summer. Superman, the new Knives Out film. I mean, you got a lot. There's a large handful of things that are, I think, going to be the new Mission Impossible, right? Isn't that this year?
That's right.
Summer release.
The last one. That's another one I didn't want to see a reboot of.
I can get that. Yeah,
never touch those.
But we're definitely going to have to start doing a thing where we just do, like you said, like movie reviews.
Yeah.
I think it'd be cool if we do a thing where like we just bring the camera with us and just film the movie in the theater.
Yeah.
And then sell it on our Patreon.
There you go. Dude, why didn't we think of this like
years ago? No, I think it'd be cool if we bring the camera with us and go watch it and then just set up in the car, like bring the mics and just set up in the car and like immediate like reactions.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Or something like, we'll figure it out. But anyway, yeah, we'll have to do some episodes on that. But I guess we're gonna kind of wind down on this one. So all in all, I think I already said Sing Street. It's a 5-star for me.
Yeah.
Where you 5 stars?
Oh,
Bub?
6 stars. They get
Six?
an extra
Oh,
star.
they broke the scale. Okay.
That's my favorite. That's
What?
one of my favorite movies of all time.
Just because I never got your thoughts on it because I was rambling. What are your thoughts on that ending? Like, you liked it or you didn't?
Well, no, I did talk about it. I agreed with you that I wanted to see more of like the band.
Okay.
Even if it would have just been an after credit scene or something.
Right.
That would have been cool. But I liked it, especially liked his brother just cheering and like bumping his fist in the air like, yeah. But I wish we would have had more. At the very least, maybe like a scene in a meeting room with an regular executive. Just showing he made it.
Yeah.
I don't like leaving things up to the imagination. But that's a small nitpick for an otherwise absolutely extraordinary film. It is better than most Hollywood films. I would put it right up there. I want everyone in the world to watch that movie and love it because it deserves that attention.
I agree. Definitely recommend to anyone who hasn't seen it. Thank you for the recommendation.
You're welcome. You have to recommend me a movie I haven't seen now.
Yeah, we're gonna have to figure that out. We'll have to do an episode where we just flip flop. Like, you give me one, I give you one, and we'll both talk about how much we hated them.
No.
But yeah, with that, I guess any other closing thoughts, or we're gonna wrap it up there.
That's all I got.
All right. Well, I guess until next time, thank you guys for joining us again. We're going to continue to do these. Like I said, we got a big year full of really big releases. I think it's going to be really fun, exciting stuff. So just, keep sticking with us and leave comments, leave likes, subscribe to the channel. These episodes go up anywhere you could find podcasts. So please, spread it, friends, family, anyone you think would be interested in listening to us ramble about mooks and boovies and
Mooks and movies.
books and movies and
That's the new
TV
podcast
shows
name.
and stories in general. Yeah, mooks and boovies. That's gonna be the new title. But just help spread it around as much as you can. We're doing what we can as well, and we appreciate anyone who's taking their time to listen to these. So
Absolutely.
all right, we'll catch y'all next time.